Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a pretty fascinating journey together. I want you to picture this. You're on a night train, gazing out the window, watching city lights just flash right by in the dark. But instead of traveling across the country, we're actually traveling backward through time and space. We're tracing the cosmos, with all its stunning, absolutely awe-inspiring complexity, all the way back to its ultimate origin. We are looking for what our source material today calls the signature of a single power.
Right off the bat, to start this journey, we've got to grapple with an absolutely staggering concept. Think about this for a second. Everything you see around you, your hands, the ground beneath your feet, literally every star in the night sky, this entire universe was once a single, infinitesimally small point. To put that into perspective, it's like taking the mass of a billion galaxies and cramming it into a speck smaller than the nucleus of a single atom. I mean, that's just wild, right? But that is the broad scientific consensus, and it raises a really profound question. Why was that point single? Out of all the possible ways a universe could theoretically kick off, why did it all start from one unified speck of an origin? Keep that mystery in the back of your mind, because it's going to drive our entire investigation today.
So, let's get into Section 1, the single point.
Let's move to this and see how this builds. We're diving into the widely accepted scientific consensus of the Big Bang, looking at how this unified origin actually unfolded over time. Step 1. The origin. That infinitesimally small speck we just talked about. Then, step 2, mere microseconds later, this unimaginable expansion begins. It's like the universe just explodes into being. Fast forward to step 3, unfolding over billions of years, and the cooling universe allows for stars, galaxies, and eventually planets to form. And finally, step 4, that incredibly long cosmic chain leads right down to the present day, to you and me. The big takeaway here? The sheer awe-inspiring scale of it all. Literally, every atom in our bodies shares the exact same singular starting line.
Moving right along to Section 2, the cosmic consistency. So we're shifting gears slightly into the field of physical cosmology to look at the actual rules governing this massive, expanding universe we just mapped out. The crucial thing here is that when cosmologists look out into deep space, they measure things like the cosmic microwave background radiation, which is essentially the leftover heat from that initial expansion. Actually, fun fact, if you ever watched the static on an old analog TV, a tiny percentage of that fuzz was literally the cosmic microwave background radiation being picked up right in your living room. Pretty crazy, right? And what scientists find when measuring this stuff is just incredible. Every single point in the observable universe traces back to the exact same origin. It's all governed by the exact same physical laws, and it's bound by the exact same mathematical constants. Whether you're measuring gravity right here on Earth or in some galaxy billions of light years away, the rules simply do not change. This unbending uniformity, it is the undeniable mark of one perfectly consistent system.
Which brings us to Section 3, a luminous proof.
When we bridge all this science with some profound philosophical deduction, we find a truly beautiful observation from our source material. All beings, small to large, are luminous proofs of a single necessary being. Now, what's really interesting about this is how, across entirely different eras and cultures, humans have looked up at the exact same starry sky we see today. They observe the harmony, the consistency of the natural world, and when they ask themselves, who created the heavens, they kept arriving at this exact same conclusion. The sheer interconnectedness of the whole shebang, from the tiniest atom to the most massive galaxy, acts as a glowing, luminous proof, pointing straight toward a singular, unified creator or source.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 4, the causal chain.
We need to unpack the actual logic, the machinery of causes and effects that bridges the gap between that initial single point and the incredibly complex universe we live in today. Let's make sure we have a really solid grasp on this concept. A causal chain is basically a sequence of events where each effect is the result of a preceding cause, ultimately tracing back to an initiating source. Think of it like a giant line of dominoes stretching out into infinity. If you see a domino fall, well, you know the one behind it knocked it over, and the one behind that knocked it over, and so on. If you want to reverse engineer the universe's laws and constants, you have to follow this chain of events backward. But logic dictates that the chain can't just hang there in thin air, right? It requires a logical starting point, a very first finger to flick that very first domino.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate logical crossroads we arrive at. On one hand, you could have an endless chain of separate, independent causes. Imagine our line of dominoes just going backward forever, with literally no starting point. Philosophically and logically, an infinite loop of separate causes simply doesn't hold up. You never actually explain why the chain exists in the first place. On the other hand, you have the entire sequence anchored to a single source. When you anchor the whole chain of cause and effect to one initiating power, suddenly everything just clicks into place. It perfectly fits both the scientific observation of a single point of origin and the logical requirement for a coherent, consistent universe.
And finally, we arrive at Section 5, the final signature.
So it's time to bring our metaphorical night train out of the tunnel and look at the whole picture, marrying that broad scientific consensus with this philosophical necessity. Trace anything back far enough, and you arrive at the same signature. Whether you're studying the cosmic microwave background radiation through a massive telescope, or just tracing the philosophical chain of cause and effect in your own mind, the journey ends at the exact same destination: a single, consistent system, a single point of origin, a single power. The next time you step outside on a clear night and look up at that vast expanse of stars, I hope you see it not just as a random scattering of lights, but as a masterpiece written by a single hand, all bearing the exact same signature. But honestly, this leaves us with the most important mystery of all. If the entire universe bears the deliberate signature of a single power, what exactly was written in the ink for us?